Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to visually unpack the truly awe-inspiring ancient epic of Prophet Nuh. This is a profound story of immense patience, divine justice, and ultimately, rebirth. It's an epic that is literally echoed through millennia, but today, we're getting up close and personal with the specifics. We'll be looking at the incredible endurance of his mission, the mind-boggling construction of the Great Ark, and the deeply dramatic fate of those who believed versus those who just arrogantly relied on their own strength.
Okay, let's dive right in by anchoring ourselves to the sheer unimaginable scale of endurance required by this incredible prophet. We aren't talking about a decade of patience here. We're not even talking about a century. We are talking about nearly a millennium. Just imagine preaching the exact same message day in and day out, only to be met with relentless mockery every single time. To really grasp the magnitude of Prophet Nuh's mission, we have to look at what he was actually up against.
Part 1. The Origins of Idolatry. So, to understand the Great Flood, we first have to understand how humanity lost its way in the first place. After Prophet Idris departed, a certain vulnerability crept in, and Shaitan planted a deeply destructive seed. You see these 5 names? They brilliantly illustrate how statues that were initially built by the community just to honor 5 righteous men were slowly, over generations, corrupted into actual idols of worship. It started innocently enough, right? People just wanted to remember these pious figures. They thought, hey, let's build statues to keep their memory alive. But over time, the lines completely blurred. Respect turned into reverence, reverence morphed into worship, and before you knew it, people were actually asking these carved stones for rain, for wealth, and for peace. The pure monotheism of the past was just gone.
And it was into this deeply rooted, stubborn culture of idolatry that Allah sent Prophet Nuh. For a staggering 950 years, Prophet Nuh called his people back to the worship of one God. He preached day and night, in public, in secret, literally every way possible. 950 years. He appealed to them softly. He warned them strongly. He constantly reminded them that it's Allah who brings the rain and provides strength. And how did they respond to all this?
Well, look at the physical reality of their rejection. They didn't just casually ignore him, they actively and aggressively shut him out. Actually, scratch that, they were downright hostile. They mocked him, called him an absolute madman, and violently abused him. And yet he never wavered. They would literally thrust their fingers into their ears and pull their clothes tightly over their faces just to avoid seeing him or hearing a single syllable of his message. They threw stones at him, beat him, and the wealthy chiefs completely dismissed him simply because his followers were mostly the poor and the weak of society.
Eventually, after nearly a millennium of this, Prophet Nuh realized they were only going to breed further corruption and arrogance. So he made this incredibly heavy, heart-shaking prayer to Allah. And it's so important to note, this wasn't a prayer born out of sudden anger or frustration. It was born of absolute certainty that this society was fundamentally broken. He knew for a fact that if they survived, they would only continue to spread tyranny and raise up more generations of disbelievers. The time for gentle warnings had officially passed.
Part 2. Building the Great Ark.
Now, Allah answered his prayer, but not with an immediate storm. Instead, it was a command to undertake a massive, seemingly impossible construction project. Prophet Noah was instructed to build a giant ship right in the middle of a barren desert. And look at this timeline. It took 100 years just to grow the wood. Imagine the absolute, unwavering faith required here. Noah didn't just run to a lumberyard to buy timber. He had to physically plant sagwan, or teak, seeds in the sand. He waited an entire century for them to mature. And as he finally started building this colossal vessel, the wealthy elites would stroll by laughing at him, calling him an old fool, sarcastically asking if a river was just magically going to appear in the desert.
But he kept building, and the structure of this ark was incredibly specific. It was divided into 3 massive floors, designed to safely house the remnants of life on Earth. Make no mistake, this wasn't just some simple wooden raft. It was a brilliantly engineered, massive sanctuary. The believers, the lighter cargo, and the birds, they took the top tier. The common grazing animals and herbivores took the middle tier, and all the dangerous predators were placed at the very bottom. But that begs the question, right? How do you keep wild predators from completely tearing apart the other passengers in a confined space for months?
While the crucial factor inside this floating sanctuary was absolute divine peace. According to the traditions, Allah made the fierce predators feverish and completely docile so they wouldn't or couldn't harm anyone. And here's a really amazing detail. When mice and rats inevitably became a severe nuisance on the ship, a miracle occurred that actually brought the cat into existence. This was specifically to keep the rodent population in check and restore a safe balance on the ark.
Now, here's a quick, fascinating aside.
While this isn't in the Quran or authentic hadith, ancient folklore mentions a massive giant who actually helped carry wood for Nuh, but ultimately drowned. This figure, Uj bin Anak, is a staple in Israeliyat, which are ancient historical traditions. He was supposedly so unbelievably massive that he could carry whole trees on his back. Yet, his story serves as a really profound historical metaphor for us. Literally, all the physical strength in the world cannot save you if you lack faith and humility.
Part 3. The Overflowing Oven.
So, with the ark finally complete, Nuh gathered his 80 followers to wait. Just imagine the tension in that community. They're sitting there, waiting for the sky to fall, wondering what the final, terrifying sign of this great punishment would be. Everyone else is just going about their daily lives, with the wealthy chiefs still laughing their heads off at the giant wooden boat in the sand. But then, the warning triggered, and it came from the most unexpected place imaginable.
Suddenly, boiling water violently erupted from a domestic bread oven. This was the sign for Prophet Nuh and the 80 believers to immediately board the ark. It was a tandoor, a traditional clay oven used for baking bread. I mean, fire's supposed to be in an oven, right? Not a literal geyser of boiling water. The second Noah saw this impossible event happen, he knew it was time. He rushed to board all the believers and the paired animals. And let me tell you, the mockery from the disbelievers stopped pretty abruptly after that.
Part 4. The Great Flood.
The skies turned pitch black. The very earth cracked open, and water poured from the heavens and the ground simultaneously to cleanse the earth. The gates of the sky opened up with torrential, unending rain, and hidden springs from deep within the earth violently burst forth. This wasn't just a heavy storm. It was the two massive bodies of water, from above and below, meeting by divine decree. And the contrast here is just staggering. Inside the ark, despite waves as high as literal mountains crashing against the timber, there was a profound peace born of total submission to Allah. Outside, pure, utter chaos, people scrambling for high ground. Even Prophet Nuh's own wife refused the ark, choosing to side with the arrogant elites, and she met their watery fate.
And here we hit what is probably the most heart-wrenching moment of the entire epic. Nuh's rebellious son completely refuses his father's final, desperate plea to board the ship. Through the deafening, crashing waves, Nuh sought at his son and begged him to get on board. But the son, completely blinded by the exact same arrogance that doomed his entire society, thought his physical surroundings could save him. He shouted back, "I will take refuge on a mountain." A moment later, a massive wave severed them, and his son was lost to the water. It's a powerful reminder that in the face of divine decree, your lineage and your worldly logic mean absolutely nothing.
Part 5. Mount Judy and the olive branch. For over 150 days, the ark had been violently tossed upon an endless, roaring ocean. But just as the punishment was incredibly precise, so was the mercy that followed, with a powerful divine command. "O earth, swallow your water, and O sky, withhold your rain." The devastation ended. The water finally receded, the earth could breathe again, and the great ark came to a peaceful rest upon the peaks of Mount Judy. The skies cleared up, the sun returned, and the raging waters were completely absorbed back into the ground.
Now, to check for dry land, Prophet Nuh sent out some birds. First, he sent a crow, but according to this story, it got distracted by carrion floating on the water and failed to return with any news. Then he sent a pigeon, and this is amazing. The pigeon came back carrying a fresh olive leaf in its beak. This proved that vegetation was growing again, and the earth was finally ready to be inhabited. It brought the beautiful glad tidings of hope and a brand new beginning. And honestly, it's exactly why the pigeon and the olive branch remain our universal symbols for peace and loyalty to this very day.
Upon stepping out onto this newly cleansed earth, the very first act of Prophet Nuh and the believers wasn't to cheer. They didn't throw a party for their own survival skills or boast about their amazing boat-building techniques. No, their first act was a prostration of immense, overwhelming gratitude to Allah. They immediately fell into sajda. It was a complete reset for humanity, built not on human arrogance, but on pure monotheism, tawheed, and profound thankfulness.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this question to reflect on long after we're done here. The people of Nuh relied entirely on their wealth, their massive statues, and the physical high ground of the mountains, and every single bit of it was washed away. The believers? They had nothing but their faith in a wooden ship in a desert, yet they were the ones who inherited the earth. So think about what you are relying on today. When the floodwaters of trials rise in your life, what is the ark that you are building? Thank you so much for joining me on this visual journey today. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I will see you in the next explainer.